Good afternoon. How is everyone doing today? Good. I'd like to thank you. First of all, this is the middle of the day on the last day, and this is a great turnout, so we appreciate you being here, certainly. And this is my third Women Deliver. I would say by far it's the best. I want to say a special thanks and congratulations to Women Deliver and to the organizers. Job well done. So for us, just to make sure that you're at the right panel, this is Men with Power, Delivering for Girls and Women. If it's not, you're invited to find your correct panel. We're actually going to start with a video by a very powerful man, and you'll know him when you see him. So why don't we roll the video, and then we'll begin our discussion.
Es innegable el aporte de la mujer en todas las áreas del quehacer humano, empezando por la familia. Pero con solo reconocerlo, ¿es suficiente? Hemos hecho muy poco por las mujeres que se encuentran en situaciones muy duras, despreciadas, marginadas e incluso reducidas a la esclavitud. Debemos condenar la violencia sexual que sufren las mujeres y eliminar los obstáculos que impiden su plena inserción en la vida social, política y económica. Si pensás que esto es justo, manifestá esta petición conmigo, para que en todos los países del mundo las mujeres sean honradas y respetadas y sea valorizado su imprescindible aporte social.
I believe the saying goes, progress, not perfection. And I'm glad to see the Pope taking a greater stand for women's place in society, but I think we can agree that there's greater work to be done for girls and women, the LGBT community, for including reproductive and sexual rights, and keeping children safe in the church. In speaking with the panelists earlier before the conference, one thing that they wanted to underscore about the concept of power is that for change to happen, it will not be a result of policy or money or position alone, that it must be accessible to and embraced by every boy and every man. And so that's what we're here to discuss. And Dr. Parker said something I particularly loved in a pre-call when we were talking about the concept of power, and he said, "Don't put me on a pedestal, I'm afraid of heights." We're going to talk about his fear of heights a little bit. And also, I think the red thread for me that was strung through the conversations was really one of leading with humility, which we're also going to talk about. So it will be about aspiration and what men can do to better advance the health and rights of girls and women. And we all know this, but I think these things are worth repeating, that we need education for all and health for all. We need an end to child marriage and gender-based violence. We need full participation of women in the public and private sectors. And when only 2 cents of every development dollar goes for programs targeting girls and women, we need the funding to match the rhetoric. And in no uncertain terms, we need more women in the political process helping to decide how she handles her reproduction and fertility. That's right, it's okay. It's all right to clap. And these are not women's issues, these are human issues. So how can we work together for solutions? We have such an incredible lineup today, and I will keep my introduction short so we can keep the program long. Arthur Erkin is Director of the Division of Communications and Strategic Partnerships at UNFPA. He's worked in Vietnam, Thailand, Bangladesh, and Tanzania. We have Commissioner Neven Mimica, the European Commissioner for the Cooperation, for International Cooperation and Development. Among his roles include ensuring the EU delivers on commitments to the global goals and working with national governments to make sure that the EU's development and aid are more effective, which these are certainly no easy tasks. Dr. Tedros, as he is affectionately known by all, is the Ethiopian Foreign Minister and former Minister of Health. He's also a past board chair of the Global Fund, and he's widely lauded for his work in ensuring women have greater access to contraception in Ethiopia, and also for improving the health systems through a community workforce initiative. Dr. Willie Parker is a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist. He is chair-elect of the Board of Physicians for Reproductive Health. He is one of 3 doctors left in Mississippi performing abortions. I'm just going to repeat that. He is one of 3 doctors left in Mississippi performing abortions and travels regularly from his home of Chicago to the South in the U.S. to provide abortions for women in need. The, I think, unique quality about Dr. Parker is he approaches his work through his faith. His personal journey is incredibly interesting, and we're going to hear more about that. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us all today. And I'm going to start with a question for each of you, and we can go down the line, a question in 2 parts. And the first is, what drives you? And is there a particular woman or event that was most inspirational in your life? Because I think we'd all like to get to know you a bit better.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and few gentlemen. Yes, indeed, what was inspirational to me, a particular woman? No, every woman, every child, everybody is somebody. So for me, it was really important to concentrate, to work, to think of all of the women, not pointing out any at this particular moment, because this won't be right. I started actually 15 years ago when I became a Minister for European Affairs in Croatia. Then I entered the ministry for the first time, and I realized 72% of the staff, of the ministry staff, were women, ladies. And this was incredible how efficient we were, how expertise we gathered there. And the most this was inspirational to me to work with such a young, expert, devoted, diligent team. And the most I could do at that time was not seek for a gender balance in the ministry, keep 72% of ladies. And I did it through my career. It works. It works because of the role the ladies could have, be it in politics, at a company level, in society, communities, families. Let's do it all over the place.
Arthur, what about
Well, let me first say thank you so much, Marshall, for being here. And when I told my 2 daughters that I will be in a panel, Men with Power, they were like, really? Good luck with your 10 minutes in Copenhagen. And so I'm sitting here with some humility, and man with power. I'm not so sure, but I think what motivated me was, of course, and so many things in our professional lives. It starts with your personal experiences, and I would go back probably, and this is when my parents got divorced. I was 14. Not that people cannot divorce, but what really was probably not a life changer, but definitely a game changer, was the fact that all of a sudden there was my mother, who had given up her career and her economic opportunities for her marriage, and then after 18 years, that's it. And I remember this vividly. I was in high school thinking, this is not right. This should not happen. And truly ever since, the issue of women's empowerment, economic empowerment, independence, confidence, has been a real driver for me personally. And so if there was an event, this was that event. And in my personal life, I think it's very important for my wife to have that opportunity to work, to be independent and confident. She is working on these issues. But I'm blessed with 2 daughters, 13 and 16, and you can imagine that's something it's sometimes lonely to be a man in that family, because you're constantly challenged. But I want them to be confident, independent girls, and I'm sure they will be. And that is really what motivates me. Later on in my professional life, of course, working with UNFPA, but and we'll come back to it probably later, is the issue of course maternal mortality, which is something that really outrages me. The fact that not enough is being done, and this is something that drives me every day.
Someone had said yesterday to to the point talk that nothing makes a man a feminist more quickly than having teenage daughters. When he sees how boys start to look at girls the way he was taught to look at girls.
Correct.
I have a newborn daughter, so I'm resolved in my feminist stance. Dr. Tedros.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there is echo, and I couldn't hear what you're saying properly, actually. I don't know if anyone can turn the, what do you call it?
The speakers?
Yeah, speakers this side to our side, because it's coming back from them, if anyone is listening. So, yeah, maybe that's a good thing if anyone is listening. I think the Women Deliver Conference I can be related to this. Just said it because I wanted the service. But it just, are we really listening? Are we understanding it? And do we really understand the benefits of it? Coming back to your question, for me, women's rights is human rights issue. So it's an end in itself. And the second is, it's also important for the society. Any country and the world as in general cannot really prosper by excluding them. Their part is important for any country to advance. So not only it's an end in itself, it's a rights issue, but it also brings dividend to the society. So the society should do it for its own benefit. I strongly believe in this. And something that drives me is then when I used to go to the villages. Now as a foreign minister, of course, I go and meet Commissioner Mimicha in EU, or maybe I'm here or somewhere. When I was health minister, I used to travel a lot. And that was when I saw the challenges we face as a society. A woman who wakes up very early in the morning to fetch water, how that exposes her to dangers. And then not only that, starts cooking early in the morning and with firewood and the smoke, what its health impacts are. Almost the whole day to make ends meet, to support the family. And that hard work, many of us here, maybe we take for granted what she actually works hard to get it. And that was moving for me and touching. Something that you cannot accept, something that you say, this is really unacceptable. And then you see the other side. When our contraceptive prevalence increased from just 8% to 42%, and women started to space their children and involve themselves in economic activities. As what our brother said, when they get some economic empowerment, when that leads to political empowerment, then that makes you happy. And then the property rights in Ethiopia, which were not existent 20 years ago. Now women in rural areas especially have the right to have their own land. And you see that changing their lives. So you can see the second part in action. When they get that access, for instance, the contraceptives, and when they become breadwinners, they have less children, less mouths to feed, but more quality of life for the family. They deliver. And at the same time, they serve that family. And through land ownership, economic empowerment, their contribution to the society. You can see it. So this is what we are missing by excluding them. And they have every right to be involved. By the way, this is not just to be given to them by somebody, from somebody. I was saying to some friends earlier, which I like to take as a reminder what Susan Anthony said many years ago. 100 years? or more, I think, when she said this actually. We have to respect what she said. She said it all. Men, their rights, nothing more. Women, their rights, nothing less. So take everything, it's a rights issue. If we respect right, we do it. But not only respecting that it's their right, but it has an added value. Who would hate to have a value addition? Because we get better by them actually being involved. So that's really core. And there is another saying also, we cannot be free until women are free. Because they're just part of us. And these are the issues I try to take to my heart, not because of these sound bites that others have said, but observing how an ordinary woman, especially from the rural, really works hard to not only make ends meet, but also to contribute to her family and to the society at large. And to the second question, they are actually who inspire me and even source of energy to really believe that anything is possible, even in a situation, in a hardship that they face on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I have to confess that sitting on this stage, I'm a little nervous because when I looked at the roster, everyone here has a title. They can say to one person, come, and that person comes. They can say to another, go, and that person goes. I can say, come, and it can say, get it yourself. So I had to find my power about why I was invited to be on this stage. And then I realized that the power that I hold is the power that every man in this audience holds. And that is, we hold the power to become traitors to patriarchy. We can betray the birthright of the accident of being born with a penis. Now, there should be, men are not the problem, patriarchy is the problem. And so if we conclude that patriarchy is the problem, then we have to actively deconstruct it. I think what motivates me and why I do my work, I think can best be summarized in, if I relate it to something that the greatest statesman, in my opinion, that my country ever produced was the 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. And he was responsible for freeing Africans who were enslaved in the United States. And someone asked him, why did you free the slaves? And he said, it's quite simple. As I would not be a slave, so I will not be a master. So when I think about the fact that we fight wars over tyranny, we pledge liberty or death, it is not lost on me that just as I would not want to be tyrannized or have my rights and my life controlled, no woman should experience that. The Mahatma Gandhi said that the only tyrant that I will subject myself to is the small, still voice of conscience. And so as a man, it is my role to reject the birthright of male privilege and to become a traitor to patriarchy so that the only tyranny that the women that I know on this planet will experience is the tyranny of conscience. That's why I do my work. The woman who motivated me the most was my mother, who had 6 children, who never finished high school. And she worked to make sure that we were clothed, fed, and that was in the context of abject poverty in Alabama. So when they say the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, that hand to me is always the hand of my mother, who I get my hands from. My mother had very large hands, so my hands come from hers. And so the skill and the compassion that I seek to apply to the lives of women when I stand in the gap and provide services for them that no one else will provide. I take that inspiration from my mother, and I don't ask for credit for it because I think she trained me when she potty trained me. Let me explain. When I was a wee kid and my mother trained me to go wee-wee in the toilet, she would make a big deal out of the fact that I would relieve myself in the appropriate place at the appropriate time. But imagine if now as an adult, my mother had to follow me around and go, "Yay, you went wee-wee in the toilet." That would be socially crippling. The point is that my mother prepared me for my career because she made sure that I understood that you don't get credit for doing what you're supposed to do. So as we figure out our rightful place in our role to work on behalf of women, we have to refuse to be tyrants, and we have to betray patriarchy.
Thank you. Commissioner, I'm going to come back to you. You have a motto and a quote that no woman, no development, no dignity. And that's aspirational. It's a beautiful statement. How do you enact that?
Yes, indeed. When you are in a development community, when you work for a better world, for a development, then you immediately realize that it is simply unacceptable that half of the world, half of the sky is left behind. It's not acceptable that girls and women benefit less from life, from its opportunities, just because of their gender. So therefore, I really want to see in each and every project, this is tool what we have in the European Union development policy implementation, I would like to see also always this gender sensitive aspect of the projects we have. Applying, I would say, cherchez la femme approach to each project, assessing to what extent it contributes to the benefit, to the well-being, to the better life of women is important. Therefore, if there is no gender sensitivity in a development project, I could not consider it to be a developmental project. So therefore, no woman, no development, no dignity. This is the approach that I would like to see in the each and every contribution we could give in the development world.
And is that enacted in requirements and funding? So is there an increase in projects that need to have a gender lens applied to them before they're funded? How is that working technically?
Technically, but even more politically, we have now very clear gender action plan, GAP. but it's really about closing the gaps. And this gender action plan is much more of action than a plan only. It's quite a robust instrument where we transit from the technical so-called calls for proposals, where we have small-scale interventions into empowering, be it NGOs or women communities, and we shall continue doing so. But we have to transit to a bigger, even kind of a, I would say, thematic trust fund for gender equality or gender empowerment. We have to think big. Bill Gates would say a big bet is in front of us, also in the gender planning and gender action. So therefore, the European Union, we are, with the member states together, we are the biggest donor in the world, 68 billion euros last year more than a half of a global total official development assistance comes from Europe. But it's not enough to be the biggest donor. We have to be the best donor, and we shall not be the best donor if we do not focus on a gender equality, on a gender related projects that we have in development.
Thank you. So, Dr. Tedros, you're lauded for the work in increasing contraceptive access and community health workers in Ethiopia. What challenges did you face among men in trying to get that increase enacted? What were some of the most pressing challenges and lessons that you can share with us?
Yeah. You mean in the service? I'm getting a problem there.
Sure. So, in working to increase contraceptive access for women in Ethiopia, what obstacles did you face from men, from others in the community?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. The challenges we faced, it was at the start actually. There was a focus group discussion that I attended. It was with women. So they accepted our presence, of course, to discuss some of the, although they were, especially women in rural communities are very shy. So about reproductive health issues and related to that family planning and so on, they're not comfortable. But we convinced them. I was part of the team to do some focus group discussion on how to increase use of contraceptives. Then to my surprise, actually, even during that early time, it just not a lot after, or even in terms of a year or so since we have started, their knowledge was really surprising. And during our discussion, they raised this issue. Please don't give us these tablets. We need depot, the injections every 3 months. And then we asked them why. Because, our men are not ready for us to use these contraceptives. Because with the use of contraceptives, suspicion and so on comes. I hope you understand. Then they told us openly. So I cannot take a contraceptive every single night because my husband may find out. Then we said to them, why don't you talk to them? They might agree. Then this woman said to us, no, you must be foolish, they said to us. They're not ready. The status quo cannot change. It takes time. And to talk to them and to wait until they change their mind, it will take years. We need it now. So it doesn't matter, we can take it without informing them. You give us, you bring depot. So you see how the mentality, the mindset of men actually was a hindrance to the contraceptive prevalence. And then we gave them some follow-up questions. Okay, even if you're going to take the Depo-Provera, a shot every 3 months, you have to come to the health post. These guys may discover them. They say, don't worry. If there is a child in the neighborhood, they normally go for vaccination, so during the vaccination, they can get their shot. And that was a wisdom from the rural communities. We normally perceive that they don't understand the problems and the solutions, but they helped us understand the problems, and they helped us also understand the solutions. And we started to increase our Depo-Provera coverage based on their recommendation. And that increased the coverage fast. So if the owners, they are the owners, are involved in understanding the problem and proposing their own solutions, even any obstacle that can come from anywhere can be overcome. That's what we learned. So we started it from there, but now After that, we focused on changing the mindset, the benefits, teaching men also the benefits of family planning. So you see some cooperation now. So over time, as what the women themselves said, the resistance from men also started to really change, especially when they see the benefits that with contraceptive use, women are having more time, bringing money to the family, and they see their life also changing, and they start to understand the benefits and, you know, be part of it. And in rural communities, as you know, action speaks louder. So when they see something is changing because of some action, that's how you can involve also more. But in addition to that, we used champion men also to help in changing the mindset. And contraceptives, this could be a bit surprising for many of you. We even involved the church, the Orthodox Church, in the distribution of contraceptives in many areas because they believed in it. And we had priests who were distributing contraceptives. So from that early whatever challenge, there was even better acceptance in the society by sector of the society that you wouldn't expect that they would cooperate. That's one. The other, maybe if I'm taking time, is on the abortion issue, which he mentioned. He says he feels nervous, but he speaks eloquently. On abortion, there is something I would like to say here. We were discussing about abortion. As you know, in Ethiopia, we have a law which is better than many countries, but still not complete. It's not complete, to be honest. And in the future, we hope we will make it complete. While working on that, somebody came and told me, you're pro-choice. What is pro-choice? Because you're saying the woman should have a choice. Does that make me pro-choice? Yes. No, then if that's the case, who is the other guy that the pro-life is this, they told me. Of course I knew that. Then I said, okay, if this is pro-choice, it could be your frame, and that's how you're trying to undermine the woman's life, but caring for the woman is pro-life. So pro-life, the life of the woman. And it cannot be. By the way, we have to reject this. It cannot be labeled as pre-choice. It's pro-choice. It's pro-life, and it's the woman's life, the most important one. We're not under. So thank you for the reminder. Thank you.
So that's an interesting segue, and thank you for that. I actually want to come back later to a question about, you said men weren't ready, and the question I'll come back with later and give you a minute to think about it is, in developing programs, do we not have enough money to include programming for men earlier? Do women need to lead it? So I'll come back to that, but the men not ready, how do we get men ready faster, or is that our nature? Dr. Parker, you're quoted, and pardon me for reading it, as saying, I've been able to come and go freely in and out of abortion clinics. And you continue, it's a conscious decision not to hide, but it's been facilitated by the very low expectations people have of African American men. For people who aren't familiar with who I am, patriarchy and racism means I'm less likely to be thought of the doctor, so that allows me to hide in the open. Can you talk about that, about what racism means for engaging boys and men, what that experience is like for you, and how you square your work with your faith?
Well, I grew up in abject poverty in the South, and the expectations for me and for my trajectory were that I would not be able to contribute coming from the background that I came from. And so what's been interesting to me is the same people who often allege that they are pro-life also have deep, flawed conflicts around race. And because of the race and patriarchy and the male privilege in a racist society. Patriarchy, when it's conflated with racism, means that the only empowered people are white males. And so, as a person who's defied the educational system and who's gone on to get a professional degree and who now makes the decision to provide assistance and services for women, for people who paint with the broad brush that I could never aspire to be a physician, the people who don't recognize me are comfortable racializing abortion to say that the doctor should always be a white guy. And they're comfortable with the notion that the clients or the patients are always women of color and poor women. And so they kind of take that to try and harass me by saying that because I'm a person of color and the women who often lack medical care, lack evidence-based contraception, and who lack medically accurate sex education, those are the women who end up having their abortions in the public space. They racialize abortion and say that abortion is black genocide. And so it is a very crafty thing because it is really not a concern about black women or black babies. It is an attempt to control the reproduction of all women by picking on the most vulnerable women. And so my effort to push back against that narrative is to openly do my work as a person of color who has prioritized poor women and women of color, not to the exclusion of anyone else, but when we make sure that the most vulnerable in our society have access to what they need, then everybody is better off. Somebody said that if it's not accessible to the poor, it's not revolutionary. And so the laws have made it such that it is possible that there are barriers in the way of women who would access reproductive rights and reproductive justice by creating financial hurdles, by creating time barriers, by creating all kinds of material challenges to women to deny them their rights to abortion. And my notion is that I've watched the industry of those women, and when you ask me who inspires me, it's the women that I see every day. It's the women who, in the midst of their poverty, caring for multiple children, because most women who have an abortion have children, that they overcome those barriers to make it to the clinic. And my reason for going there is that I want for women what I want for myself. I want a life of self-determination. I want a life of dignity. I want an opportunity to contribute to the Commonwealth. And because I want that for myself, and that's what I want for women, I go to the places where there's danger involved because I want to make sure if a woman has enough industry to make it to that clinic, that there will be somebody there to see her and that nobody will turn her away.
You likely have a second career teaching bedside manner to physicians throughout the world. Arthur, I want to get back to the question about what we can do to get men ready sooner. And so you were a rep in Bangladesh, and during your time there was a sharp decline in maternal mortality. What were the challenges that you faced? How did you engage men? Because I'd like to give people in the audience some specific tips and information on better ways to engage boys and men. So what did that look like for you? What challenges did you face? What hurdles did you have to cross with other men?
When I arrived in Tanzania, in Bangladesh in 2007, about 11,000 women died every year. And in my very first speech, I arrived in July 1st, on July 11, I did a speech at World Population Day where I said, there are 11,000 women here dying entirely needlessly. That's 30 a day. That means a bus crashes every day in this country. As a UN representative, you're very aware that maternal health is a political issue. It is not much to do with medical. It's a political issue. And so erasing that at that level is the most important first step to do, making maternal health a political issue, having champions like Dr. Tedros. Very early on in Bangladesh, I went to Tagugaon, in the northwest of Bangladesh, and we did a maternal death audit, which is what you do after a mother has died. You're going to look at, with the community, what went wrong. I was privileged to go there, and the community was discussing what had happened with the woman, and this woman had one child, was a 4-year-old boy, and they were discussing it. The father was there. What happened was the woman was about to deliver, feed first. There was a problem. They called in a, let's say, traditional midwife. She came, started to pull on his legs, didn't work. They started to call the ambulance from the nearest clinic, and while the ambulance was on the way, they thought the woman had died. The woman had died. So they called off the ambulance, said, okay, it's no longer needed. Only to realize about 10 minutes later, the woman actually hadn't died. So they called back the ambulance and said, well, you have to come because there's a real problem here. In the meantime, the midwife had fled, and when the ambulance came, the woman had died. What struck for me, and I came back, was the boy. The face of the boy, because while we were talking with the community in their own language, they were talking about his mom. That boy who was sitting in front of me clutched his dad like this the entire time. And they're looking at me like, don't take my father away. I went home and I printed a quote from a rather famous OBGYN, Mahmoud Fatala, who once said, he was also the president of the International Federation of OBGYNs, and I'm not one, but he has a fantastic quote which says, women do not die because of diseases we can't treat. They die because societies have yet to make the decision that their lives are worth saving. I went home and I said to my staff, you print this and make a poster. And for 6 years in Bangladesh, I had next to my door, and our staff here probably that know it, they had next to my door this quote, that anyone who will come in my office, including myself every morning, would be reminded that unless we take it to that level, nothing will happen. Now, one of the things which has frustrated me in 20 years in doing this is, we know what needs to be done, why is it not happening? We know that every woman needs to have a skilled attendant at her bedside. Why is it not happening? So for 6 years I've devoted really the UNFPA program towards driving down maternal mortality. And one of the things we did was the introduction of midwives. Midwives in accordance with international standards. You can't believe the opposition we've had, including from people in this room, from organizations in this room, saying, no, that's too expensive. No, that takes too long. No, we can do it much faster. No poor solutions for poor women is what we then say.
Yes.
Because it is not. Why should a woman in Sweden have access to the best quality care and a woman in Bangladesh doesn't? That's immoral. And as a development partner to the government, despite opposition of many, I'm sorry to say, of many in the development community saying that there's a better way, I said no. My proudest moment in Bangladesh was when the Prime Minister went to New York in 2010 at the MDG conference, 10 years after the adoption of MDGs, and we told her, make a commitment that you are going to train 3,500 midwives by 2015. And when she announced it, we knew politically we were there. Today, we have midwives in Bangladesh that are being trained. And I told my staff many times, and I'm sure there are people here who know this, I told my staff many times, if your daughters get delivered their babies by a midwife, think about this moment, because it happened here.
Thank you. So something that you touched on that I'd like to ask you, Commissioner, is how do you get women better engaged in the political process? If it's a political issue that's stopping so many programs from being enacted, what's the key to getting more women in politics?
Well, I would say that it is important, of course, that all of our activities, our actions are directed to that goal and among others. But also reaching this goal is very much about engaging men and into that process. So therefore, when I received invitation for this panel under title Powerful Men, I asked myself, why am I powerful? Is it because of managing 10 billion euros each year of the European Union's development money, or is it because of the outcome of this 10 billion euros that we can reach? It's really not about counting money we put in the development. It's about analyzing and assessing the outcome, the results. So we should not communicate even the billions or hundreds of millions. We should communicate how many women gave birth that was attended medically by midwives, or how many less stunted children we manage to contribute to, and this is how I see the role and the power we in the European Commission should have. Also, maybe my power is more about being in a position to engage others, to persuade others, other men, other colleagues, other politicians, to run together along these lines of bringing and enabling political engagement of women, engagement in the peace and security operations by women. I managed to get all male members of the European Commission on board of the He for She initiative. Therefore, I really like to say that and this is what I said at the very beginning of my mandate 2-3 years ago, that I will be the most vocal male feminist in the European Commission, and this is what works now. And it is to work. It must work into very clear direction of having more women into political life. I visited a number of countries where this is becoming more and more visible, be it in Africa, especially in Africa.
I'd like to turn that to you, Dr. Tedros. What is your experience, and how can women be better engaged in the political process? What can men do specifically?
By the way, when we talk about women's involvement, we shouldn't see it at the top only. It starts from the communities. And we have a women development army now, which is making a huge difference in Ethiopia in almost all fronts, taking full responsibility, not involvement, but ownership, changing their lives, changing the life of their society. So starting from the family, the communities, villages, and so on, we have to make sure that they're part of the process, starting from planning to execution, then the evaluation process, and they have to own that. They have to be treated as owners. And then you go to the high level, the same thing. So they should be in boards, they should be in parliament, they should be all walks of life. And we have to make sure that. I said earlier, the problem is we don't want to see, but they are there, even for higher positions. In our country, for instance, the percent of women in parliament was less than 10% some years ago. The last round of election was 28, and the recent one is 38%. It's not enough, but it's okay. So be it in the powers, the cabinet or the parliament, or in all they have to be there, and we have to know that it's possible. One good example in Africa is, for instance, participation of women almost in all walks of life is Rwanda. And 64% of the MPs are women. Good example for all of us, and we're proud of Rwanda, and that can be done. If Rwanda does it, anyone can do it. And you see their proportion in the cabinet. If you see their proportion even in ambassadorial positions, and you see their participation even at the grassroots, just all levels, it's really incredible the progress they have made. And we have good stories also in many countries, but it's not enough. We should really push for a complete involvement with ownership at all levels, because we can do better when we have men and women working for the same goal and aspirations of our countries and the whole world.
Thank you. We are shifting our role in the panel. I'm going to introduce Jill Sheffield to the stage to present the Women Deliver Award for Perseverance. And before she comes out, I just want to put one question in your mind that we'll answer at the very end, and that is, what's the single most important thing that men can do to better support women? Try to make it tweetable, and we'll come back to that.
What a great panel, seriously. It's really my privilege now to present the Women Deliver Award for Perseverance. We thought about calling it persistence, but decided that perseverance better described what the winner has produced. I'd like to introduce to you someone you already know. It's His Excellency Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, whose distinguished career in politics and healthcare reform spans nearly 30 years. He's currently Ethiopia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, but Dr. Tedros has also served as a member of Parliament and as Minister of Health, importantly. As Minister of Health from 2005 to 2012, he simply transformed Ethiopia's health system. He invested in infrastructure and health workers to expand access to care to tens of millions of Ethiopians. Under his guidance, Ethiopia achieved ambitious health targets and stands particularly as a global model for effective health system reform and governance. Thanks to that healthcare reform, Ethiopia's child mortality was cut in half. Access to modern contraception jumped from 7 to 40%. Availability of contraceptive methods rose from 60 to 90%, and over 30,000 health extension workers were hired, trained, and deployed to rural villages to serve as that first line of care for the underserved. This is particularly critical in Ethiopia, where the population is largely rural and dispersed. With a strong focus on mothers and children, Ethiopia's health extension program trains female high school graduates in primary health care services, including sound hygiene, sanitation practices, as well as family planning and health education. Dr. Tedros has played a prominent leadership role on a number of global health initiatives, serving as chairman of the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, the Rollback Malaria Partnership, to name just two. He has been recognized as one of the 50 people who will change the world by UK's Wired magazine in 2012. As Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Tedros has put his proven and considerable diplomatic and negotiation skills to work to continue to champion global health, emphasizing the crucial link between access to health care and poverty reduction. We celebrate Dr. Tedros today for his commitment as well as his vision, recognizing that health care is in fact a pillar of economic development. Dr. Tedros.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Jill. It's an honor to receive the award, particularly here at the Women Deliver from you and among thousands of women who are fighting every day to remind the world that we can achieve what we can achieve when girls and women have the tools to succeed. I received this award on behalf of many colleagues and collaborators who tirelessly work to improve and change the lives of girls and women in my 30 years of public health and political career. Improving the lives of women has a ripple effect of changing the lives of the family and the community. You're guaranteed of the dividend if you change the life of a girl or a woman. This is my drive. I received this award on behalf of the 39,000 women health extension workers of my country, whom we trained, recruited with the fullest fringe benefits of a civil servant, and empowered as change agents in their community and society. These women are at the center of the transformation story which I told you. I received this award on behalf of also the 3 million women volunteers whom we empowered as Health Development Army to transform their society. Each and every woman embraced in the Health Development Army has her own unique story of change, a story of empowerment and story of transformation, not only in health, but also in education, nutrition, and development. So this award for me is a reminder to do more. Mission not yet accomplished. But what I believe is we have more to do actually. What we did is still small, a little bit. So the challenge is still ahead of us. And the second thing I would like to share with you is I met different people, different languages, different cultures, but it converged on just the same story from everybody. The stories are the same. And this reminded me that we simply cannot accept the status quo. Wherever you go, it's the same, the problem. The stories are the same. And it has to stop. Girls and women should be at the center of our actions. And we need to become conscious disruptors of the status quo if we're going to bring change. And that can only be realized. It's not when it's technically led, but when it's politically led. Political intervention brings radical change. And the voice of each and every one of us here is important. So when we leave this place, I think we should all of us commit to keep the momentum. We meet 2 or 3 years. That really inspired me, gave me energy. I'm ready now to go back and do more. And we should consider from when we leave this place to continue the fight every single day. And you have to go back and challenge your governments, challenge us. We have to go back and challenge our society. The problem is in the mindset. It has to change. And it can only change politically, not technically. So that's my take, and I hope that's also your take. And starting from tomorrow, we go into action, keeping the momentum, aspire more, and we can do it. So, thank you. I will close my speech. Men, their rights, nothing more, and women, their rights, nothing less. I like that one. And I hope to host you in Ethiopia, maybe the next Deliver conference. It's the country of Lucy, the mother of humanity, everybody. Commissioner Mimicha tweeted it yesterday. So I hope the organizers, of course, should decide. But from our side, I'm really glad to host you in Ethiopia, which is the mother of all humanity. And then thinking about Lucy, which is related to Women Deliver. So thank you so much. Thank you.
So the final question, back to the final question, a tweet, a soundbite. What's the single most important thing that men can do to better support women? We'll go down the line. This will be the thank you for our panelists. I will ask the audience, in the spirit of what Dr. Parker said, to not applaud for us. Please don't. We're doing what we should be.
Well, to keep tweeting culture alive, I would only say, if it is without women, it's not development. That's the guiding line I would like to keep in all of the European Union's actions. But when listening to this panel, I would add not only I would add to the title, to the Women Deliver title of the conference, just few words. It's women and men deliver for women. That's what we have to achieve, and not only in this panel, but much wider outside this room.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Single most important thing, getting pregnant might help, because then we'll probably solve these problems. I've said many times, if men were the ones who could get pregnant, believe me, would have built the best hospitals, make sure that the delivery was painless, or even ask someone else to get pregnant and we pay for it. So I think we have to get real. I mean, this is such a no-brainer. But since we are often a bit simple, I would for a start say engage men. That is probably very important. We've learned our lesson by not doing so at the detriment of women, and it's time that we deliver for women.
Thank you.
Yeah. From my side, it's we should do honest soul searching. The enemy is in. The problem is inside. And we have to fight it. As leaders, I can start from the leadership, because leadership should take the bulk of the responsibility. So it's weak leadership that's really is becoming a hindrance. So that soul searching, and also accepting that the problem is inside and we can fix it with really committed leadership and use commitment, I think things can change. So I suggest men should think about this daily and change their mindset and real commitment and stronger leadership to make things happen.
Thank you.
I think in order to make the mountain that women have to climb smaller, men have to simply move from being non-patriarchal to anti-patriarchal. It is very possible for you to be non-patriarchal, meaning that you support your wife or your partner, you participate in child care, and you do that personally in your home, and nothing will change. But when you become anti-patriarchal, it means that you have to deconstruct the societal structures that tyrannize women, even when you personally are not a patriarch. So men have to move from being non-patriarchal to anti-patriarchal.
A fine way to close. Thank you.